A pair of shoes sits on a wooden bench at Sunset Cliffs, San Diego, placed with a neatness that doesn't belong to this hour, this darkness, this wind off the Pacific. They are women's shoes, canvas, worn at the toes. They face the ocean. No one passes the bench. The cliffs are empty. The city behind them is asleep. The shoes wait. April 15th, 1994, 6:47 a.m. The Pacific is the color of old pewter. The surfers have been out since first light, 5 of them, locals, moving through the cold in the practiced silence of people who know these waters the way they know their own breathing. Danny Reyes, 22, is the furthest out, reading the swell, waiting for something worth the paddle. He sees it before the others do. 40 feet from the cliff base, tangled in the kelp, dark, still. Danny calls out, a short, wordless sound, and the others turn to look. The brain, confronted with something it does not want to recognize, reaches for comfortable interpretations. Driftwood, a seal, a buoy wrapped in wrack. But the current shifts the mass and turns it, slowly, face up, and the comfortable interpretations collapse all at once. The youngest surfer, a kid named Marco, who everyone will remember later as the one who had been laughing about something 30 seconds earlier, turns and vomits into the salt water before he makes it back to his board. Danny stays. He doesn't know why he stays. He will think about that decision for the rest of his life. The woman is young. Her hair is dark, spread wide around her. She is nude. The damage to her body is the kind that changes the people who see it, the kind they carry home, carry to sleep, carry into ordinary Tuesday afternoons for the next 30 years. Her right leg is gone from the mid-thigh. Ragged lacerations cross her torso, her shoulders, her lower back. In the cold gray light, with the kelp moving around her and the cliffs rising above, she looks like something the ocean is offering up and withdrawing at the same time, unable to decide. Danny paddles back to shore without looking away from her. He keeps his eyes on her face until the distance makes that impossible. Later, he will say he felt like he owed her that much, staying present, not turning away. He will also say that something about what he saw felt wrong to him, even then, even in the shock of it. He cannot explain what he means by that. He just knows the feeling. 22 years old, and he knows. By early afternoon, the San Diego Medical Examiner's Office has reached its conclusion. Dr. Alan Marsh, 44, has seen the photographs, reviewed the scene documentation, received the preliminary report from the diver who recovered the body. He sits at his desk with a legal pad in front of him, and he writes, "Great white shark attack. Victim likely entered water alone, late night, early morning hours. Injuries consistent with large predatory species. Cause of death, exsanguination due to shark attack. Manner of death, accident." He caps his pen. Across the desk from him, the detective assigned to the case, a lean, careful man named Ruiz, who has been with homicide for 11 years, and who is already thinking about the paperwork this will generate, reads over the preliminary finding. "Shark," Ruiz says. "Great white. The leg wound alone." Marsh gestures at one of the photographs without looking at it. "We've had 2 other incidents in this stretch of coastline in the past 5 years. The injuries are consistent." Ruiz studies the photograph for a moment. Clothes were found on a bench up near the overlook. She went for a swim. Bench is half a mile from the water. Marsh looks up. There is a silence between them that is not quite comfortable. "People leave things in odd places," Marsh says, and it is clear from the way he says it that the conversation is over. "It's a shark, Ruiz. It's a tragedy. File it." Ruiz files it, but he keeps a copy of the photograph of the bench, the shoes. He doesn't know why. He just does. Her name was Michelle Von Emster. She was 25 years old. She had come to San Diego from Missouri 2 years before her death, moving west the way certain people do, not running from something, but running toward the version of herself that felt most fully alive. She found it here, in the light, in the ocean, in a city that asked no questions about who you had been before you arrived. She worked at a design studio downtown. She had friends she cooked dinner for on weekends. She swam at Ocean Beach in the mornings before work, 3 times a week, and she knew which swells were coming before the apps did. 3 weeks before April 15th, she had lunch with her closest friend, a woman named Kara, who would spend the next 30 years trying to make people listen. "There's a man," Michelle says, stirring her coffee. She says it the way you say something you are not sure you're allowed to be bothered by. "I've seen him near the studio, and near my apartment." Kara looks up. "The same man?" "Blue shirt, dark hair. He doesn't do anything, he's just there." Michelle sets down her spoon. "I know what it sounds like. It sounds like you should tell someone." "Tell them what? That a man exists near places I go?" Kara watches her friend's face. Michelle is not a person who frightens easily. She grew up near rivers, was swimming in open water before she was 10, has a quality of stillness in dangerous situations that other people find both comforting and slightly unnerving. The fact that she is bothered by this is, itself, a thing worth noting. "He looked at me," Michelle says. "Not the way people look at you on the street. The other way." Kara reaches across the table and covers her friend's hand. 3 weeks later, she will be the one who identifies the body. The challenge to the medical examiner's ruling did not come from the police department, or from the district attorney's office, or from anyone with a badge. It came from a marine biology seminar at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, 3 weeks after the case was closed. Dr. Patricia Holt, a shark behavior specialist with 20 years of published research behind her, is standing at the front of a lecture hall. She has the photographs. She will not say how she obtained them. She will say only that they were brought to her attention by someone who was troubled. 42 graduate students and 3 faculty colleagues sit in front of her. The room is quiet, in the way rooms get when something has shifted without anyone announcing it. "This," Dr. Holt says, pointing to the wound documentation on the screen behind her, "is not a great white attack." Someone near the back asks her to clarify. She turns to face the screen and points. "Bite radius. The characteristic injury of a large predator strike should show this here, and this here." She moves her pointer. "What we have instead is a laceration pattern that runs in, this is the part that I cannot account for, in almost a straight line across the lateral portion of the torso. A great white does not produce this. Nothing in the water produces this." She pauses. "This looks like something pulled across skin, not bitten into it." The room sits with that. "There is also the matter of the fractures," Dr. Holt continues, her voice level, professorial, but something underneath it that is not quite level. "The rib fractures on the left side, 3 of them, are not consistent with the compressive force of a bite. Great whites produce specific fracture patterns, lateral, related to the mechanics of jaw closure and lateral head movement. These fractures are directional, focused. If I showed you these fractures without any context, I would tell you they came from blunt force, repeated, applied to a body that was already on a surface." A faculty colleague 3 rows back raises his hand. "You're saying you think—" "I'm saying the evidence does not support the ruling," Dr. Holt says carefully. "What I think is not for me to say. What the evidence says, that I can tell you." She sends her findings to the San Diego Medical Examiner's Office in a letter dated May 18, 1994. She receives no reply. Detective Ruiz does not know about the letter for 6 years. When he finds out, through a paralegal at the DA's office who mentions it in passing, not even knowing it is relevant, he sits in his car in the parking garage of the precinct for 17 minutes without moving. He still has the photograph of the bench. He has carried it in the back of a desk drawer through 2 office relocations and a change of department. He cannot explain why. He is not a man who holds on to things. He takes it out and looks at it again. The shoes, side by side, facing the water they cannot see from where they are placed. A woman who loved the ocean would not leave her shoes half a mile from the entry point. A woman who loved the ocean would kick them off at the edge of the cliffs and run. The witness's name is Eleanor Marsh, no relation to the medical examiner, a coincidence that has always struck her as one of the universe's more unpleasant jokes.
She is 31 years old in April 1994, and she lives in a ground-floor apartment in Ocean Beach with a view of the street and insomnia that has plagued her since her 20s. She is awake at 2 in the morning on April 14th when she sees the man in the blue shirt moving along the path toward the cliffs. She will not understand what she saw for 30 years. In 2024, when a cold case investigator named Torres sits across from her in her living room, she is 61 now, gray-haired, with the specific kind of composure that comes from having carried something heavy for a very long time. Eleanor describes it with a clarity that surprises both of them. He was moving fast, she says, not running, but purposeful, like someone who knew where they were going and needed to get there. She folds her hands. I remember thinking it was strange because he was alone and it was cold, and there was something about him, the way he was moving, that was the wrong speed for that hour. Torres leans forward. Did you see his face? Briefly, when he passed under the streetlight. She pauses. He looked like someone who was concentrating very hard on something, not angry, concentrated, like a calculation he was running in his head. Torres asks the question gently. Was there anyone with him? Eleanor looks at her hands. I didn't see anyone, she says, but... She stops, starts again. He was moving like someone who had just put something down. Does that make sense? His hands were... He kept looking at his hands as he walked.
The 2024 Forensic Review is a consequence of a funding allocation, not a breakthrough. A cold case re-examination initiative that selects files based on 3 criteria: contested rulings, limited original investigation, new methodological tools. Michelle's file clears all 3. A team of 3 forensic pathologists working independently is given access to the original documentation, the preserved tissue samples from the 1994 evidence locker, and the physical record, including the clothing found on the bench. They work for 6 weeks. The lead pathologist, a woman named Dr. Renata Cruz, is presenting her findings to the cold case unit when she reaches the section on the neck injuries, and she pauses, not for effect, but because she needs a moment with what she is about to say. The soft tissue compression patterns in the preserved cervical region, she says, are characteristic of manual strangulation. The distribution, the direction, the depth. She sets down the report. Someone's hands were around this woman's throat. The room absorbs this. The rib fractures, she continues, confirm what Dr. Holt identified in 1994 and was ignored. Blunt force, repeated, applied to a body in a fixed position against a surface. She pauses. In our assessment, consistent with a person being held down. Torres, who is in the room and who has been in this building for 12 years and who thought she had learned not to feel things in professional settings, looks at the ceiling for a moment. And the sand, Cruz says. The sand in the lungs. The composition is beach sand, fine, compacted, intertidal, not offshore floor material. Michelle Von Emster's face was in the sand while she was still breathing. She was killed at the shore, not in the deep, not in a great white's territory, in the cold dark where the ocean is sovereign and indifferent. At the shore, in the intertidal zone, where the waves come in and go out, and the sand is fine and wet, and the cliffs rise above, and the city is asleep, and the Pacific can be made to look like it took what was never its to take. The case is not closed. It exists, as of this writing, in the administrative record of San Diego County as a natural death, and in the evidentiary record as something that contradicts that classification entirely. The forensic review findings are entered into the official record. They are under active consideration. A formal reclassification to homicide has not occurred. The man in the blue shirt has never been identified, but picture the cliffs on a dark April night. The Pacific below, running with kelp. The city behind you, asleep. You are standing at the edge of something, and the ocean is enormous. And you understand what it erases. You put her in the water, you arrange the narrative, you fold the clothes, the neatness is important, Chaos raises questions. And then you walk back up the path, past the ground floor apartment with the light still on, past the street light, concentrating, calculating, hands that will not stop being what they are. And you have 30 years. You have 30 years of the ocean keeping your secret, of the file sitting in a drawer, of a medical examiner's 3 words doing your work for you. And then Dr. Holt's letter surfaces, and a cold case unit gets a funding allocation, and an old woman with insomnia who never forgot what she saw at 2 in the morning agrees to sit down with an investigator and describe a man walking too fast toward the cliffs, looking at his hands. 30 years is a long time, but it is not forever. Eleanor Marsh walks the cold case investigator to her door at the end of the interview. She pauses with her hand on the frame. Her name was Michelle, she says. It is not a question. Yes. I looked her up after you called me. Eleanor's voice is steady. She loved the ocean. She did. Eleanor nods. She looks out past the investigator's shoulder toward the street, toward the direction of the cliffs, toward the direction of a Pacific that kept its secret for 3 decades and has now, very slowly, begun to give it back. She deserved to have someone see, Eleanor says. That night, she deserved for someone to have seen. She closes the door. Down the street, the bench at Sunset Cliffs is empty. It has been empty for 30 years. The city moves around it. Tourists photograph the water from it. Teenagers sit on it to watch the sun go down over the Pacific. The shoes are long gone. But the bench is still there, and the cliffs remember everything.